Welcome to Series 1, Episode 6. This is an archive of live video Q&A streamed online. Consumer behaviour and behavioural economics are changing the way we buy. In this episode, I chat to Laura Morris from Trinity McQueen discussing how the coronavirus crisis will impact a huge shift in our behaviour, how we buy and what becomes important to us. Enjoy. Welcome to the Johnny Ross audio experience. I'm Johnny Ross, founder and digital marketing strategist of Fleek Marketing. Each podcast I'll be bringing you an expert to inspire you, to give you some great business growth takeaways, and to get you thinking about marketing and the bigger picture of how businesses can improve, adapt and grow. I look forward to sharing this with you on each podcast, so here we go. Hi, and welcome to another live Q&A. We are live streaming on Facebook, which is the Coronavirus Yorkshire Business Support Group, and we're also on YouTube live streaming. If you're watching on replay, please put hashtag replay so that we can understand how you watch these and which channels you're watching them on. If you've got any questions, please do ask. We are actively wanting questions. We will try and answer them. So we're going to be talking about consumer behaviour today, and a crisis, it can really reorder society in some massive ways, from how we travel to how we buy homes, to the level of security that we're used to, even to the language we use. What will become of restaurants? Will touch become taboo? Will nations stay closed? Well, we've got Laura Morris here, a director from Trinity McQueen. I can't imagine she's going to be able to answer all of these questions. But Trinity McQueen is an award-winning insights agency and got some fabulous clients as well. Laura, welcome to the live Q&A. How are you?
Hi, Johnny. Thank you for having me. I'm okay, I think, today.
How's the last couple of weeks been for you, Laura?
I would say it's been a mixture of quite stressful at times, quite refreshing on other levels, in terms of maybe just getting back to basics and doing some kind of nice things around the home, but overlaid with, obviously, like everyone else, a level of anxiety and worry. So it's been a real mixed bag, to be honest.
Yeah,
but we're getting by.
And I assume you're all working from home now as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for the last 2 weeks now. So everyone's in lockdown.
You've got some big name clients. I know we won't be getting into much detail, but I can see from your website, for example, that Legal and General, Asda, Jet2, Argos, some seriously big clients. What's going on? I know that during a crisis, I assume you'll be very close to them. What's going on with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a real mixed bag, depending on kind of the sectors that they work in. Obviously, clearly for travel clients, this is pretty devastating kind of short-term impact in terms of things there. Other clients are keeping going. Certainly we have a lot of clients in the grocery retail kind of space, and absolutely inundated, busy like no other time ever before. So we're just really supporting our clients in whichever way we can, whether it's through the offer of kind of secondment time for us to kind of give them extra bandwidth in their insight teams, or through the actual kind of research that we do. So making sure that as brands they stay as close as possible to what's happening with their consumers and how they're feeling and how actually their brand is being perceived through all of this. It really has been varied across the mix of clients we work with.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of your clients are consumer. You also do some B2B stuff as well. I think you do some charity. We might get onto that. But I just wanted to give a bit of an overriding opinion that a lot of the big circle that I'm in is B2B, business to business, and I firmly believe that whatever happens in the consumer market, whatever happens in retail, slowly but surely does transfer into how clients act in the B2B world. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably things are probably happening and kind of shifting quicker kind of than they perhaps used to do. It maybe used to be that B2B was a bit slow to play catch up with the consumer world. And I think in all sectors, whether it's B2B, B2C, I think, we're all being slammed into having to adopt new ways of working and new working behaviours very, very quickly, and just adapting to the new normal, as it were.
So what's going to change? What's the big shift? Why are we going to shift? Give us your thoughts. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, gosh, there's a lot to kind of break down here. But I think what we need to think about in terms of, consumer behaviour is think about time periods here. So obviously we've got the now. So how are things being affected right now in terms of how people are behaving and responding to coronavirus? We've then got the next, if you like, which is the chapter that we're going to have that will kind of come after this period. So as we start to emerge from coronavirus and hopefully in perhaps a couple of months' time, 3-4 months' time, we start to return to some semblance of kind of normality. And then you've got the kind of longer term future. So, in a post-pandemic world, as it were, what behaviours are kind of here to stay and what behaviours are just going to revert back to where they were before. And I think that's the first really kind of important thing to say is that, break down those time periods in terms of how things are changing. Now, there's obviously lots of kind of stuff out there at the moment in terms of how kind of habits have changed currently in the here and now. Pretty much every sector you can possibly imagine, every area of people's lives has been affected. From what they buy, thinking back to groceries and food shopping again, category by category, there's been some huge shifts. Frozen food is up. Alcohol sales are up as people can't go to pubs anymore. People are doing more scratch cooking. Obviously, travel sector, we literally can't travel at the moment. So holidays have literally been ground to a halt there. And we're seeing changing media consumption habits. A lot of people getting their news from the television and the television actually having a bit of a surge in popularity. Literally every single walk of our lives has been affected in some way, shape or form. And different categories are winning out. Different categories are maybe having a bit of a tough time of it at the moment. But of course, the question on everybody's lips is, are these habits going to be here to stay? Are they positive things? Are they not so positive? And kind of what are we going to be left behind in a kind of post coronavirus world? And there's definitely some kind of interesting thoughts on that from different kind of sides of the fence.
You talked about one of the things you mentioned just then was scratch cooking. Actually, some people probably haven't heard of the term scratch cooking, but I think it's bigger than you're talking about cooking from scratch and using the basics in your cupboard, aren't you? And
yes.
but I think it's far bigger than that, isn't it? There's a huge upskilling going on at home. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's an interesting area. We've all kind of seen, I think, a lot of people are kind of doing baking and cooking, whether it's a means to kind of relieve a bit of stress or whether it's, just they've got more time at home to kind of do it. Or equally, is it being able to get the ingredients. I think, a lot of people are rediscovering maybe the joy or the skill or learning new skills in terms of cooking kind of meals from scratch. And so that's quite an interesting one for us in terms of whether that's something that's here to stay. Are we going to see, for example, convenience, ready meals sort of lose out as a result of this? Because actually people have learnt new skills. Maybe that's kind of one outcome of this. Same in terms of, frozen food. Will frozen food kind of return to its kind of former glory in compared to fresh food, and actually people will realize actually this is not too bad and it's fine. So there's some quite interesting kind of behaviors potentially that might kind of stay as a result of this.
But going much further than food, the whole upskilling and using the resources that we've got, some of the examples might be from a tech point of view. So how we're all suddenly using video.
God, absolutely. I mean, yeah, that tech is certainly something I can personally relate to. So I kind of describe myself as a bit of a technology Luddite. As an agency, we're actually quite tech advanced. So I'm probably a bit different to my colleagues in that regard. But yeah, all of a sudden in the last kind of couple of weeks, I've had to learn how to do, Zoom video conferences and interact with people on Microsoft Teams and online collaboration tools. And of course, adapt the research that we're doing to kind of remote approaches. And I think actually beforehand, I perhaps had a perception that it was quite difficult and a bit kind of cumbersome to kind of have lots of widgets and apps open all the time, and kind of it's far easier to kind of make a call or send an email. But actually what I'm finding is it's actually really, really easy. Once you've done it a few times and you've got the hang of it, I think technology is a brilliant way that we can connect with one another and keep a semblance of kind of community, whether that's work or outside of work. We're kind of all, I guess, appreciating how lucky we are in a way to live in a world where we have got technology to kind of connect us at a time when we're feeling the most disconnected of all, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to remind everyone, you can ask questions. We've had a couple of comments. If you're on Facebook, I can't see your name and where you're from. If you want to put it in the comment, feel free. Loving the interviews you're doing in this group. It's really helpful. And someone else said, thank you for this. That's very kind to say. But if you do have questions, please do ask us. So technology, we're upskilling. And, does that have an impact? You were going to say something?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one thing I think is a big thing in all of this. So I think the latest statistic from Nielsen was that 600,000 households tried online shopping for the first time in the last few weeks. So just if you think back to kind of how this is all impacting not only how we kind of connect, but how we shop, that's quite a big number there. And I think there'll be a whole, again, a cohort of people who maybe have never tried online shopping before, who've now tried it for the first time and have realized again that it's quite easy, it's quite convenient. And, maybe again, that kind of behavior will stick. They might have potentially had some issues getting delivery slots. And yes, there's been some kind of, I guess, kind of issues around that. But actually, again, if you were someone who thought beforehand that online shopping, especially maybe grocery shopping, was tricky, difficult, full of hassle, then you might have kind of now got a different perception as a result of that.
Yeah, and I'm bringing it into the away from shopping for a moment. So the way we work, our commute now is like 1 minute to get to the bedroom or the kitchen table. There are our whole is this a potential insight to companies to potentially realize that actually we could work remotely?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, a lot of sectors will have been obviously ahead of the curve here and doing a lot of this already. And I think absolutely, we've all been forced to kind of quickly adopt remote working. Some organizations, perhaps the bigger ones, have been quite, I guess, they're quite hard to adapt quickly to it, but we've all had to. And there's a great Rory Sutherland, the behavioural economist, talks about this a lot, and he talks about how it's really inefficient actually when you think about how we all kind of commute to work. So typically the majority of people, especially office workers, will get on a train kind of 7:30 in the morning, commute home around 5:30 in the evening. Not only does that cause a huge pressure on the transport infrastructure around those kind of peak times, but actually, wouldn't it be better and more efficient if we all come to work stressed and haggard from the train journey or the bus journey or whatever? Wouldn't it be actually much more efficient if we kind of staggered, kind of when people started kind of work and just sort of thought about work in a different way? So you've got work that clearly does involve collaboration and the need to kind of talk to other people. You've got a lot of work that involves actually just producing things and kind of getting things done Working from home is brilliant for that because you obviously don't have the distractions as much. So yeah, we've got to think about different ways we work. There's thinking time, there's producing time, there's collaborating time. And I'm pretty certain that most businesses, after having gone through this, will shift their attitudes towards kind of working from home and see it as, kind of something that they can really embrace kind of moving forwards. Perhaps as a means of kind of perhaps keeping some of the costs of running their offices down, as a means of giving everybody a bit more flexibility, just being less kind of strict on the need for face-to-face meetings all the time.
And on the flip side, you've got a strong opinion around how we all crave human physical contact, which I can certainly relate to. What's your thoughts on where that's gonna what's gonna happen there for us?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, you have to look at kind of countries like China that are just starting to kind of emerge from this, and actually behaviours are kind of going back to some extent to kind of normal. People are meeting up in clubs again and kind of bars and restaurants. We're all social animals, and of course, technology and kind of social networking and all of that enables us to carry that on to some extent. But I don't think you can ever fully replace kind of face-to-face contact. There's just something that you kind of lose by physically not being kind of present with people. In a lot of scenarios, we can kind of live with that if it's in a kind of work scenario. But in other scenarios, I think, we absolutely need that face-to-face human contact. And, that's definitely going to come back with a vengeance. Whether we're all of a sudden going to be a little bit more selective about who we choose to kind of have face-to-face contact with so intimately is something to think about. Whether we're all a lot more kind of hypersensitive to, the potential of transferring germs and kind of the importance of kind of, hygiene and hand washing and all of that. I'm sure that's going to be here to stay. But yeah, I for me, it would be kind of quite dystopian to suddenly think that because of this, we're now all of a sudden, never going to see anyone ever again in person. I think we absolutely crave that as human beings. And as soon as we're out of this, I'm sure people will return to what they were doing before, meeting friends for coffee, going to the cinema, all that kind of lovely social interactions that people like to do face to face.
And in fact, you also call this social shopping as well. So just tell me more about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess we have to think. Obviously, some shopping is functional, but a lot of shopping, especially if you think of leisure sector things like clothing or health and beauty or sportswear, trainers, shoes, you name it. A lot of that is done as a kind of leisureful activity. So we like to, go into town, mix it up with maybe going for a coffee, going for a lunch, a bite to eat with some friends, doing a bit of shopping and kind of punctuating the day with little breaks like that. For some people, shopping is a serious kind of social habit. I don't think social shopping is going away anytime soon. I'm sure we'll see a return to that once we get back to some semblance of normality.
Yeah. Okay. Are we going to have so is it mindset or is it behavior? What comes first? What is it? Attitude, behavior, mindset? What dictates?
No, there's a lot of interesting kind of schools of thought around this in from the kind of behavioral science fields. It's kind of ironic, really, but you might think that actually to change someone's behavior, you first have to kind of change their attitudes towards something. And yes, that is certainly true that, we can do that. We can certainly kind of change the way people think about things and change how they feel about it. And because they feel differently, our feelings then drive our behavior. But there's also a school of thought that says change behaviors first and then someone's attitudes will follow. So just to kind of, give an example of this, a practical example. So there was a company, an agency that were doing a kind of piece of management consultancy work for a company on the importance of customer service. And so, you know, they tried the kind of typical way of changing attitudes, raising the profile of the importance of customer service by putting, you know, lots of posters up about it, quotes from customers, lots of, you know, nice shiny photos of people kind of shaking customers' hands and things, delivering great service. But really, it didn't really deliver the intended uplift. So they changed tacks. They actually then got the senior management team to spend, I think it was like maybe 15 minutes of their day actually speaking to customers on the front line, so they could hear firsthand, you know, what customers were talking about, what they were complaining about, that side of things. And, you know, because they then were actually experiencing it, they suddenly had this heightened appreciation for the importance of customer service and where they needed to do wrong, where they needed to kind of improve. And all of a sudden that changed how they then kind of, I guess, behaved in respect of that issue within their organization and the initiatives they kind of put in place. So you change people's behavior first, and then you change, and that, as a result of that, it changes their attitudes. You know, I think about myself on this and personal example as well. So just going back to the technology example and using kind of Teams, so Microsoft Teams. So beforehand, I was thinking, God, this is actually, you know, I think it's too hard for me, and you know, I'm just going to put that off, like all the other things on my to-do list that, you know, I don't want to touch today, because it just felt a bit too difficult and like it would be kind of clunky and unwieldy. But because I've actually been forced to use it and I've had to change my behavior, and actually I've then now shifted my mindset. I'm going, do you know what? This is actually really, really easy. I can do this, and you know, I'm going to use it more going forwards.
I want to link a few things. Well, I'm linking a few things. I don't know if that's right or not. But the way that we are, you know, are we going to start caring more for others? Are we going to start? Is CSR going to become a bigger thing? Are we going to be bothered about plastic cups, or are we going to be more bothered about the pay that a nurse gets in the NHS, or even the pay that that someone in a fast food restaurant gets, because that could impact on our health in a way. You know, are we bothered about the neighbour that's not socially distancing because of their perhaps bad education? You know,
Yeah.
so does all of this sort of you know, I've just I don't know, those are just some thoughts that are starting to go in my mind. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're all kind of pertinent points. I mean, I think, you know, no question, I think there's just a hugely renewed, heightened sense of appreciation for frontline workers, for NHS staff, for the health service in general. You know, we're very fortunate. I was talking to a contact of mine just today, actually, about how fortunate we are in the first place to have the NHS when you compare, you know, the UK to sort of societies like America, where it's all private healthcare and, you know, private healthcare insurance. And, you know, I think there was already an appreciation for the NHS, especially for the people that have unfortunately had to kind of rely on the NHS for various reasons, or have had family members who've had to in recent times. But I'm pretty sure as a result of this, you know, that level of appreciation that was already there has just gone up a whole other level. You know, we talk about kind of the war on coronavirus, and we're always kind of quick to, I guess, you know, praise and quite rightly so, you know, kind of, just give huge amounts of credit to soldiers and the army and people that kind of are at the front line of kind of literally fighting kind of wars. But I think, you know, this is a new kind of war. It's an invisible enemy. And, you know, we should bestow praise and reward on our NHS workers in the same way that we have done in the past on our military heroes. And I really truly hope that's here to stay. And the heightened appreciation we'll have for those people is here. Now, you also mentioned an interesting thing in terms of, you know, how we as consumers, you know, we're still going to care about the environment and, Wasn't it all, 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, where we're all kind of brandishing our sustainable coffee cups and our, recyclable water bottles and etc. And again, I honestly don't think that's gone away either. I think, again, there's more. This is just kind of heightened awareness of that issue even more. We've realized, I think, as a population, as a society, just how interconnected globally we are to one another. We're not an island, and something that we do here has a consequence over here. So, me buying a cheap fashion item that, and then throwing it away has a massive impact on people in, a far-flung place and factories working on very, very minimal wages and the conditions that they're working in. I think we're all going to be a little bit more appreciative of that. And yes, I think we now care a little bit more in terms of how brands treat their staff. So I know, there's lots of kind of research kind of kicking around from different agencies, not just ours, in terms of what's going on here. So there's an agency called Savanta. They do some quite interesting tracking around brand heroes and brand villains as a result of this. And certainly, there's evidence to suggest that brands that have kind of maybe treated their employees in a way that hasn't been perceived to be brilliant, certainly consumers are kind of seeing those brands perhaps a little bit more for what they actually are. So just to kind of give a couple of examples here. So they cite, for example, Wetherspoons. I think they're quite outspoken kind of CEO had come out and just, they just didn't treat their staff particularly well in terms of pay. And then he came out and said, well, if you're all that kind of dissatisfied, why don't you just go off and work for Tesco? So not very helpful there. So yeah, I think we might kind of scrutinize a little bit more how brands behave in respect of not just their customers, but in terms of their own employees.
Yeah. Okay. So and that very much. So the word you used was heightened things. So it in a lot of well, even in the business world, but consumer as well, around that whole CSR potentially will just get bigger and bigger then.
I think so, but I'm just going to kind of couch that with a pinch of kind of reality here, because we have to also have a healthy level of cynicism for this. Ultimately, we've seen this in research time and time again, and I don't think it's, it doesn't come from a kind of bad place, but fundamentally, a lot of people can be quite sort of, I guess, selfish without realizing it, and we adopt the easiest line, the least path of resistance. So I've heard in previous research before coronavirus kind of came out, a lot of people talking about, well, I know I should support kind of local shops more, but it just so easy to go on Amazon one click and order that good. So I think whilst there's a lot of people say a lot of things and they have good intentions, when it comes to their actual behavior, they do tend to take the path of least resistance, and they will do the thing that's easiest for them. Sometimes that might be the thing that's the least effort. It might be the thing that, is the least kind of cost and the least expensive. So we just have to have a little bit of healthy cynicism for, the extent to which people's cares about these things will actually then translate into their behavior. But I do think, there'll be heightened awareness of this. And for some people, it might just be the difference. We live in a world, Johnny, where, there are so many kind of Me Too brands. There are consumers, we're living in an age where there's just so much choice. So it's not like we have to, we're limited in terms of if a company doesn't sort of stack up to certain criteria, it's not like we have no other options. We can switch quickly, just like that. And boy, oh boy, we will. We will vote with our money and we will vote with our feet. So, if it's the choice of me, buying my coffee from McDonald's or buying my coffee from Costa or whatever, if there's a tiny bit of difference in terms of CSR there, I know where I'm going to be spending my money. And it might just be that small thing that makes the huge difference in terms of my behavior.
Okay. Yeah. but then at the same time, it might just not change many behaviours. I'm not sure if we've talked today in this broadcast around how events like this, you'd even compare them to a death in the family, or a marriage, or it's a life. There's certain events. Just expand on that for me. There's certain events.
Yeah, no. So again, going back to kind of behavioural theory here. So we know that kind of there are certain key points in people's lives where an event will happen to them, and it suddenly is a window of opportunity where their habits shift and their behaviour shifts. So, for example, coming up to a milestone birthday. So you're about to reach 40. Not that I'm about to do that. Or you had a baby, or you got married, or you got divorced, or something bad happened, somebody died in the family, whatever. These are all huge life-changing events, and it's at times like these that we tend to reappraise what we do, and we maybe make some new habits and put down some new ways of doing things. And it's a time when, therefore, brands have a great opportunity to kind of ride on the back of those behavior changes. So, for example, so going back to the milestone birthday thing, it's a great chance. If I was like a chain of gyms or something like that, I'd be like, right, anybody approaching kind of maybe a 40, 50-year-old birthday, whatever, I would kind of be really actively trying to engage with them, because, these people might just potentially be wanting to get their health back, or kickstart, a new regime. It's why all the gyms are kind of at it with their marketing efforts around January, because they know everybody post Christmas is kind of looking to kind of change habits, and you see a huge surge in gym memberships around that time. Coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it, is a bit like that. Obviously, we're all in it together at the same time, so that's quite unique. Not just in the UK, but globally. But it's a big event that has fundamentally disrupted and shifted habits overnight, and it's therefore a window of opportunity for behaviours to potentially change, not just now, but for the longer term.
Do you think that there's going to be much of a shift to own brand or cheaper brands?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing that, to be honest. So it's just a bit of a random example, but I ended up going down a rabbit hole reading up about kind of pet food the other day, and again, there've been shifts even in that category in terms from an affordability level. People are trading down because obviously we've got to remember a lot of people are hugely affected by this financially, and they're worried. So we don't have the luxury of perhaps being able to afford the more expensive brands at this point in time. We are making those kind of trade downs, I think, and there'll be plenty of areas of our lives where we have to do that, somewhere we choose to do that. There's also, availability issues. So maybe people not being able to get their kind of regular brand that they would buy, or just being forced to buy a different brand or an own label brand, because literally, you get to the supermarket, or if you do go on a trip, or you go online, and you're not left with much choice. It's like either buy that's there, or don't have that kind of item at all. So yeah, I think we will see people kind of down trade.
Which category, age category, do you think this is going to affect the most? I don't mean just buying cheaper brands, but just overall the overall behavior or the effect. Which is the age category that's going to feel the biggest hit here?
Yeah, so I like to kind of think of this one generationally. So if I think about myself, so I'm kind of almost 40 now, and I can think of at least two kind of other events in my life. So obviously there was the kind of recession in the 90s, and then you had the big credit crunch in the 2000s. Both big economic shocks to the country that I experienced personally in my life, and kind of what impact that had, and also impact on the clients that I was working with at the time. So for sort of older people that have maybe lived through those kind of events, those huge kind of changes in markets, economic recessions and the like, there's a level of, they know what this kind of looks like. Now, clearly, kind of a pandemic and a coronavirus thing it hasn't been kind of seen for quite a number of years now. I think it was, oh gosh, I can't remember now, but the last flu pandemic was kind of probably before
Spanish
most people. That's it, Spanish flu. Before most people currently living on this earth, were born. So it's kind of the first kind of event of that kind that kind of we've experienced. But I think the older generations, or sort of anyone who's maybe lived through some of the recessions of the past, are a bit more familiar, if you like, with what this looks like and the fact that we will come through it. I honestly think younger generations, this is quite, for many younger people, this will be the first real time in their lives that they experience this kind of shock. And, it's quite difficult for them. It'll vary depending on the specific age of the person, the young person. But anyone, under 24, I would imagine this is a huge, huge shock that they're dealing with.
Yeah, I can see that. And as you go even younger, I think it unfortunately will have impacts, which is a shame. Retail, fashion, are we going to come out of this wanting a new dress? Well, I don't know if I want a new dress, but are we going to be like, can't wait to get something new to go out in? Or are we going to? Is there going to be a bit of slow growth there? What? Any thoughts? Are we going to be spending lots or?
Well, again, just kind of need to temper it with the fact that a lot of people will have been fundamentally kind of hit by this financially. So although there might be a desire to kind of, get back out there and get a new dress again, whether people financially can or not is another matter. I think a lot of people will just have to, it's going to really seriously affect them, and they'll be probably taking mortgage holidays already, very, very worried about things, and spending money on non-essentials is probably the furthest kind of down the line for those people. For people that maybe haven't been as financially affected, I do think there'll be an element of pent-up demand that's going to come back. You think of kind of, fashion's one sector you could kind of talk about there, and the amount of friends and people I know, oh, can't wait for next time we go out and have a good drink and a good kind of knees up. I'm sure some of that will come back. Travel is an interesting one for me. Again,
sorry, it looks like we had a bit of a technical issue there. We've got Laura back.
Hello.
Sorry
about that. I don't know what happened.
I do apologise to everyone. Hopefully you're still with us. A bit of a technical issue, but hopefully you've got us back. I'm trying to remember where we were. So I think what we were talking about was the gap. I think the gap could become even bigger, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, like I was saying, a lot of people have been financially impacted by this. Very hard for certain kind of sectors of the economy. But in other areas, there's an element to say there'll be pent up demand for things. Certainly, I know some of the categories we work in, kind of electricals and kind of homewares and things like that. I think people are delaying spend on big ticket items. They're obviously just prioritizing the here and now and kind of getting by. It'll be interesting, thinking about holidays, for example. Whether one school of thought is that, we will, for the people that can afford to go away after all of this, will be absolutely craving to kind of go away and kind of get out of here and get a holiday somewhere. There's another school of thought that thinks, do you know what? Maybe people have just realized through all of this that we don't need to travel millions and millions of miles away to far-flung destinations to have a nice time. We can, benefit from more staycations or staying a little bit closer to home. So I think it's going to affect different sectors in different ways. But I don't think things will return overnight to where they were beforehand. I think it's going to take some time yet to kind of get back from this.
This has been fascinating. I've really enjoyed hearing some of your insights based on some of the evidence that you've already seen. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add. Laura, where would we find you if we wanted to find you online? How do we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, Laura Morris on LinkedIn, Trinity McQueen. Just contact me through that if you want to kind of talk further. Yeah, that's probably the best channel, Johnny.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such an insight. We're looking forward to, I'm going to be following closely some of the blogs that you'll be posting, I'm sure, over the coming days and weeks. I imagine that you'll be producing some reports at some point as well. Trinity McQueen on their website. We've got some comments here, been really helpful. Thank you. If you've got questions afterwards and it's not live, just pop them in the comments and we'll always come back to you at some point. I've got some other thanks to us there as well. Thanks so much. We're going to say goodbye. Bye from me.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right.
Take care.
Pleasure. Take care, everyone. Stay safe, stay at home, and we'll get through this fight Corona together. Take care.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Johnny Ross audio experience. Thanks so much for joining me. If you want to continue the conversation, head over to my website, fleek.marketing, or find me on LinkedIn. That's all for today. Please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, tag me in your social media posts, and please leave me a review on iTunes. It will make a huge difference for me. I will see you soon.